Hello and welcome back. I am here with the fourth round case from the 2025 Road to Las Vegas series called the Formula Bar and Grill. If you're not familiar with this case, let me quickly read a brief introduction for you. You have recently opened a fully autonomous dining establishment. There are concierge bots that speak with customers to take their orders and chef bots that prepare the food. The restaurant is open 7 days a week from 10 in the morning to 9 p.m. Your task is to analyze the first month's performance and business operations. Data on your first month of operations from June 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2024 is provided on the Historical Orders tab. So if I take a look over here at the Historical Orders tab, you'll see we have 9,000 orders listed here. And you can see that there is a ticket with a certain kind of code. That's going to be important, and that code refers back to this menu that's listed here on the front page of the case. So that's pretty much the premise. It kind of brings back memories of Overcooked if you play that video game, except this is really staffed by robots instead of people running around their kitchen trying to get everything all sorted. So before I get started, I will just say that this case did not quite go well for me. I made a small or a simple mistake that kind of had some pretty big implications throughout the case and ended with a low score. So I know what happened. I know what I did. And I think when I do this video, I should be able to get around it. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and give this case a try. And here we go. For level 1, we were asked, what was the last placed order for each day? Now, what I did at first was I took a look at this historical order list, and it looked to me that everything was in chronological order. I turned this information into a table so that it would be easier for me to reference and use in my formulas later. So since it was all in chronological order, I can do a very simple max ifs statement. So basically, give me the largest number when this date equals the date that's given in the question. So what I want to do before I go to level 2 is I want to go back and change my headers very quickly so that's something easier that I can type when I use my formulas. And I'm also going to turn this menu into a table and change the headers because I imagine I'm going to reference this table later. For level 2, we are asked how many units of the indicated item are present in the order number. So we're given an order number and a menu item. And since the tickets are all given in codes, what I want to do first is I want to take this menu item and return what is the code from that menu. Now I'm going to bring up the entire ticket with all of the codes inside. You can see that right here. But before I do any more, I want to split those codes up into groups of 2. So you remember, every item on that menu is a combination of 2 letters. So to do this, I'm going to create a let statement. So the order ticket is going to be the formula to bring out the ticket from the table. And then I'm going to create this split ticket. Now, if you saw my movie from the Whodunit case, you would have seen how I split a word into several characters. I'm going to take that same principle, except I'm going to modify it a little bit. You see where I'm adding divided by 2 and 2 characters and so on. This is now changing the formula so that every group of letters that I bring out is actually going to bring up a group of 2 letters. So now you see that I have all of the items split out into individual cells. Now what I want to do here is I want to see how many of these items match the code for the menu items that I brought out earlier. I cannot do a countifs formula because the first argument of countifs does not take an array. So instead I'm going to use this equals formula. I do this double minus so that trues and falses turns into ones and zeros. And when I get that all matching out, I'm going to bring this formula into the answer box so I can copy it down to the rest. Now, order 3 is asking us the order price, and it brings in this concept of a combo. So when someone orders an entree, a side, and a drink, they'll get a $2 discount, a combo discount on their order. So what I'm going to do now, in the actual solve of the case, I try to do it one by one according to the question levels. But what will work much easier is if we go ahead and take this entire table from this sheet and calculate the cost of all of the orders here. Now, what I want to do also is I want to bring my menu information over so I can reference that very easily. And then to do this, what I'm going to do first is I want to count all of the items within that order. So I'm going to bring all the codes down so that they can be the headers in my table. And then I'm going to take this split ticket formula that I used earlier. I want to bring that over. We're going to use this formula, but I'm going to modify it a little bit. So first off, the order ticket, I don't need to do an XLOOKUP because the order ticket's right there in the ticket column. The split ticket part can remain the same. The only thing I need to change is the final formula. What am I looking to see what matches? Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to manually type in the reference. I know I'm referencing the header cell, but my experience with doing references in tables, they tend not to follow the behavior that I want to follow. So you can use the regular Excel reference and that will work just the same. So you see here, for example, order number 1777, the second order on the screen, there is 1 cheeseburger in that order, along with 1 hot dog, 2 deluxe hot dogs, etc. Next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to count how many entrees, how many sides, and how many drinks do I have for each order. Because remember, there is a combo discount, and that combo discount really depends on how many of each of these that I have. So I created this formula and I can copy it all the way across. You notice that I have the cell references again, although I do have the table reference in the first part, but that actually stayed where I wanted it to stay. Now to count the combos, basically what I did was I took the minimum number of those 3 items. That's really what's going to constrain how many combos I have within each order. So now that I have all of that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to calculate the total cost of each order. I have how many of every item, I have how many combos, I have the price for each item, and that gives everything that I need to calculate the cost. So this is going to be pretty easy. I can easily reference these 10 items, reference the price in the menu, make that absolute reference so it doesn't change, and now I can subtract any combo discounts from that price. And doing that is going to give me the total cost for every single order. Now we go back to level 3, we have an order number, they want to know what was the cost. I can do a very simple XLOOKUP formula to bring that cost over to this sheet. Everything should match up nicely, and I can copy that down through all the questions. Level 4 asks how much was earned on each of the following days. Now, since I already know how much is earned on each order, I can do a very, very quick and simple sum-ifs formula. So what that's going to do is I want to sum up all the total cost for all of the orders that are on a specific date. Doing that, copying that, filling that out, gets me all of the daily revenues. Level 5, across all historical orders, how many times were the following items found in the same order? So this one made it a little bit trickier because what we have to do is we have to take the actual text of the item and we have to convert that into codes to look it up. Now some of these have more than one item, which means we have a plural name. So what I'm going to do to this menu table is I'm going to add a plural name column. There are easy ways to do this. There are some difficult ways. I just wanted to go fast and just manually type the plural names of all of these items in there so that I don't have to worry about, let's say, plurals that don't have an S, or we have to have an ES and such like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring out the number of all the items. So if there is a number before it, that's the quantity of the item. If there's not a number before it, then we can assume the quantity is 1. So I'm going to do an if statement here to bring out the quantity of each item. I can easily copy that over because these are relative references, so they'll copy over very nicely. Now the next thing I want to do is actually bring out the item name or the item code. So if it is one item, that means there's no number in front of it, then the name of the item will just simply bring out the code in my menu table. If there is a number in front of it, what I need to do is I need to bring out the text of the item after that number. So you see I'm doing a text after function with a space. So give me anything after that first space. Also, because there is a number, then that means we're going to get the plural form of whatever word. So instead of looking that up in the normal name column, I have to look it up in my manually created plural name. Now when I do that, you'll see that all the item codes will come out very nicely. Now to find out how many orders have, for example, 3 beers and a cheeseburger, I'm going to filter the entire orders table. And what I'm going to do is, now you see I have this indirect statement here. Because I made all of the headings the codes of the items earlier, I can use this indirect statement to reference that column. And so you'll see right here that all of these have 3 beers in the order. Every one of these is going to have 2 criteria, so I'm going to copy and paste and just change these references a little bit. So now what it's going to do is count how many 1s do I have in the CB column. And so you see here the second column of numbers are all 1. That's all matching up. All I need to do is find out how many rows came out in that result. 61 rows means there's 61 orders. That matches my example. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that down for all of the other answers in this level. Now level 6, this one was actually quite a difficult one, I felt. We have the customer's orders in plain text, but we need to convert this plain text into codes that the robots can understand. Also, the items in the order ticket should be in the same order as the items here in the code. I tried to do this using formulas during the solve, and I really couldn't get a nice one. What I think works best here is to take this as an exercise in cleaning the data. So you see what I'm going to do here is I'm going to replace any examples of just the word A with 1. So instead of a soda, I want 1 soda. Remove all of the and, remove the full stops at the end, remove the starting sentences. And after I do all of this, what I'm going to end up with is I'm going to end up with a list of items and their counts. And they're all going to be separated by commas. Doing that gets me a data set that I can work with quite well with a formula. And so what I'm going to do after doing all of that is I am going to split out all the items in this cell using the comma space as my delimiter. And then you'll see that when you do that, now I have all the items in their individual cells and I have them in a formulaic way. Now after I do that, what I want to do next is I can very easily take out the quantity out of those cells. So I notice here that the quantity is always 1, 2, and 3, but just to be safe, I just took whatever text was before the space. So you see here, for example, there's 1 beer, then that means it's only going to bring out the number 1 from that cell. I want to highlight the entire area. Now that's going to bring out all of the numbers with just one formula. Now you'll notice here that some of the numbers are shifted to the left, some are shifted to the right. That's a big sign that some of them are coming out as text instead of number. So I'm going to multiply it by 1 to tell Excel to treat this as a number, not as a text. Now I'm going to bring out the items from the menu, which is basically all of the name of the items after the first space. So I'm going to do a text after function, basically give me whatever is in these cells after this first space. Now the if error onto this is for those cells that don't have items in it. It's going to return a blank cell instead. Now that I have that, actually, I'm going to modify this formula up a little bit to actually bring out the codes of these items. Because remember, we need to bring out the code. We need to bring out the ticket in that code format. So I'm going to use a similar formula that I had to use in the previous one. Remember, some of these had singular names, some of them have plural names. Interestingly enough, when I do this as a range, it doesn't bring out all of the items. Like, for example, bacon burgers is coming out blank. I'm actually not quite sure why. What I wanted to do is I want to use this if not found parameter in the function, but it's not working. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the formula itself, but I am going to put it within an if error statement. And that if error is basically going to say, okay, you didn't find it in the singular name column, come back and try to find it in the plural name column. Now that's going to bring out all of the other items, for example, the bacon burger. And the rest of the errors that you now see on the screen are basically errors that should be blanks. So I'm going to create another if error around that, and any more errors should just be returned as blank cells. And now I get the items matching the items at the top of the screen. So now that I have the quantity and I have the code, what I need to do next is I need to repeat the code. So remember, if somebody orders 2 deluxe hot dogs, for example, then the order should come up DHDH. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this repeat function on these 2 ranges. That's going to repeat whatever characters the number of times in the upper range. After I do all of that, when I concat all of these together, what that does is that now gives me the ticket codes that we're looking for. I can copy and paste those up, and those will match all of my answers on level 6. Now level 7, and this one is the fun one. Now we have to model the kitchen work. We have 5 chef bots, each with the capacity of preparing 4 entries. We haven't dealt with prep time in this case yet, and this is where we deal with the prep time. It can be quite complicated. There's a lot of instructions here. Basically, the question is, how long does it take to fulfill all of these orders? Now, since there's a lot here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this entire thing onto another sheet so that I have more room to work with the data. And first, I want to try working with the example 7A, B, and C. Now, when I tried this level before, I went to my typical strategy of using a data table to try to solve it. But these cases are all interlinked. These are all cases or all orders within the same restaurant on the same day. So they're not separate cases. So that data table actually didn't work to solve this level. Instead, I'm just going to have to model the entire day's orders onto this one sheet. So you see here what I'm doing again is I'm going to do the split ticket formula. I probably could have copied and pasted that formula from the earlier cell, but oh well, I've already done it here. Below this is where I'm going to create my order. So I have all 3 example orders now split up into their individual cells. But for the order number, what I want to do is I want to repeat the number according to the number of items on it, so that every row, the order number is corresponding the same. It's taken me a little bit to get the formula that I want to do. This is another formula that was similar to my whodunit case, where I'm going to manually separate the values using this semicolon here. And then when I do that, I can then text split using that same semicolon, and that should list all of the orders according to how many items they have. I'm going to do the same thing for all 3, but then I just realized that I'm doing this in a very bad spot. This is where I want my model to be, but the way that I've set it up is I can't really undo this. I can't put this out in a single column because it's working in my model where I want to do things. So instead, I'm going to move these over to the Y column, and now I can use a toCall function to take all of these order numbers in the correct quantities and put them in a separate column. I'm adding this 3 arguments so that it takes out the 1 blank, because the one order had 1 less item than the other 2. Now I can use the same toCall function again to bring out all of the items right next to the order number. And now I'm going to bring out the order time. So what I can do here is I can use an XLOOKUP function to find the time in that table to see when the actual order was placed. But keep in mind that for future orders, that's not the actual time that it's going to be cooked. I'm changing the format to time so that's easier for me to see what's going on. And because we have 5 chef bots that can handle 4 orders each, I am going to do something similar to what I did with my question numbers, where I'm going to just kind of create this little table of bots and just give each one a space A, B, C, or D. Basically what I'm doing is I'm going to model out my 20 potential, let's say, cooking stations. So I can keep track of when each cooking station is finished. This is very similar to the approach that I took in the Clash on Titans case, which was one of the game day cases in the 2024 World Championship in Vegas. So you'll see here that I'm going to have this, what people like to call a helper column. And in these actually 20 columns, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep track of when each bot is finished working. I set a starting time of 10 o'clock because in the instructions, the restaurant opened at 10 o'clock. I could have set it at 12 o'clock because none of the orders came in before 12 o'clock. Either one will work. The key thing is all of the bots, all of the cooking stations are ready and available. Now I'm going to look up the prep time for all of the items in the order. Now I know I only have to worry about entrees, but just to keep things easy and simple, I'm going to bring the prep time for all of the items. Anything that's not an entree has a prep time of 0, so it should not affect my model at all. I'm going to create this assign to column. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look up the first chef bot that is available. So you see I'm looking up true, and I'm going to use this comparison statement. So which one of these times is less than or equal to that order time? If it is less than or equal to that order time, then that means that bot is available at the time that I want to prep this order. So I'm going to assign the order to the first bot that is available. Chef bot 1A, you're going to be busy. And then I'm going to use this end time. Now what I did for this end time is I used the time function, and you see that I've only used the seconds part of that time function. And since the prep time is 180 seconds, I can simply say 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 180 seconds. Now I know that's 3 minutes, but you can overload the seconds field in this time function to keep it simple and let everything flow in very well. Now, when a chef bot is cooking this, that means that their finish time needs to be updated. So I'm updating it on this table over here. Now, when I fill all these down, I notice that the last few rows are NA, meaning they're not calculating properly. Likely it means that there's no chef bot available or something else is wrong. So I'm going to go through and try to audit my table and figure out why these chef bots at the bottom, or why these orders at the bottom simply do not have a chef bot assigned to them. So looking through, I'm just kind of looking at all of these separate steps. I'm checking the instructions to see if there's anything that I missed in the instructions. So now one thing that I noticed is that all of these are being told to start prepping at the time that they are ordered. But if there's no bots available, then we can't cook it at the time they are ordered. So we gotta find out what is the actual realizable time, let's say, to start cooking the order. So now I'm gonna change the actual start. And that actual start is going to depend on either when the order was put in or when a chef bot is available. Now I can assign a chef bot, and now all the chef bots are assigned properly to the order. So every single item in these example orders have been assigned. Now what I can do is I can see when each of the 3 orders were actually finished, use that and compare it to the time that the orders started. So I'm going to bring this over to the right because I know the table below is going to go further down. So I'm going to bring over the start time first. The end time is going to simply be the largest time value based on the order. So I can do a max ifs function to find the time for each of those 3 orders. So you see that these are, I'm going to put them back in time formats because once again, that's going to make it easier for me to see. Now to find the time differences, I'm just going to simply subtract the 2, but you got to consider the way that Excel tells times. A full number refers to a full day. So I need to take these 2 and multiply it by 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute to turn those days into seconds. Now, the first 2 examples did match, but the third one should be 231, not 210. So I need to figure out why this final number is not matching like the rest are. So I'm checking the instruction. The instruction says the final entree to complete is the bacon burger, which should complete at a certain time. Should also start at a certain time. And that time is not quite matching what I have in this file. So I need to figure out what is going on. Why are these not lining up? And here I notice that even though I changed the actual start time, I didn't adjust the end time formula. Adjusting the end time formula now gets me the correct answer for the time spent. So now I feel comfortable with that. I am going to apply this logic to the rest of these levels. I have to do a little bit of changing because I see that question number 122 has 13 items and these examples only had 10 and 11. So I need to kind of scoot some of these columns over to the right a little bit. But after doing so, then all of these should be able to copy down just fine. So there I've copied down all of my items. Now I need to do the same thing for the question number. I need to move some stuff over to the right again because once again, that one case has 13 items. It's going to be longer than these examples. Now all the question numbers have been copied over. And now what I can then do is I need to change the information in this table down here. So instead of 2 calling these example numbers, what I need to do is I need to do 2 called to those case numbers there. And you see when I do that, and then use a 2 call for all of the item numbers, I'm getting a lot of NAs. Once again, this is because of the format of the data. The order numbers have been copied over as text, but in the questions are actually numbers. And Excel does not see them as equals. So basically what I need to do is I need to change all of those to numbers by multiplying by 1. Now Excel is seeing them as equals. Now I can copy that data down. It's getting me answers. And let's see now if it gives me the correct answers for the starting and ending times. So now what I want to do is I want to copy these time values down, but one mistake that I made or failure to think ahead is I kept all these, or I copied and pasted all of these as 3 rows. Doing that is making it troublesome to copy it down to the real question numbers below. So you see, when I do this, I'm getting a lot of spill errors. And that's not going to work out so well when I'm doing my calculations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these time values. I'm going to modify these formulas a little bit. So instead of referring to 3 rows, they're all going to refer to just a single row. Then I can copy and paste them across all of the other rows in this level. Now doing so, I'm still getting some issues with some of the questions. So for example, the end time, this is not calculating correctly. So I'm going to take a look through and I see that I don't have the absolute references where I need the absolute references. So I'm going to set some absolute references here. Now they're not ref errors anymore. These are value errors now. So let me take a look again. The end time. I only refer to a single cell for the end time. So I need to change that reference from a single cell to that entire column. Now we highlight all of the end times. Now I do have a proper end time. I can copy and paste that over. I have the number of seconds for each level. Let's see how all these check out. They do not. This is because of Excel's famous floating point error. You see I have 210.0000 forever 4. To fix that, we need to round all of these numbers to 0. Now, when you're doing this case live, you're probably just going to copy these whole numbers across and you're going to be fine. But for me, because I was doing this on the computer, I was getting slight decimals that was actually changing my answer. Let's take a look at the bonuses. Bonus 1, what is the maximum number of orders placed in a single day? So I'm going to use the group by function. I'm going to look for all of the dates, count all of the dates, find out which date came up the most. That's number 332, and that checks out. Bonus 2, what is the total revenue earned across the historical data? Now, since we already modified the entire data table, I can just do a sum of all the total costs. That checks out. Bonus 3, what is the maximum number of combos ordered in a single day? So this one, when I tried to do it live, it was a little bit tricky trying to count the combos because I have not just 0s and 1s, but also 2s and 3s and 4s. So I'm going to add an extra column to my table here called has combo. Basically what that means is if the combos are greater than 0, then that means there's a combo, give me a 1s and 0s instead. Now when I go back to answer this question, I can do another group by formula, and now all I have to do is sum the numbers together within each date. Sum the number of orders with combos, and that should show me that one date has 136 combos ordered in that day. Bonus 4, how much discount was applied in total across the historical data? Well, we know how many combos there were. Each combo was a discount of $2. I just need to sum the number of combos up, multiply by 2, and there we go. final bonus. On average, how many entrees are ordered in each order across historical data? Since we have the entrees column, we can just take the average of that entrees column, round it to 0 digits, and then we get the answer, and then we solve the case in 28 minutes. It was a little bit sloppy there in level 7, but I think it worked. And I think you will see a few other strategies to solve, especially level 6. I'm very interested in seeing how the other competitors solved level 6. So I mentioned in my introduction that I made a minor mistake and that kind of ruined pretty much my entire case. Basically what I did was, in this solve video, I split up all of the order tickets into groups of 2 characters. That then put every item in its own individual cell. But when I solved the case live, I did not split up the orders, and instead I just counted how many times a certain pair of letters showed up within that ticket. So why is that a problem? Well, let's take an example. Let's say someone orders 2 hot dogs. That means the code that will come up would be HDHD. Now, in the middle of that HDHD, you have DH, which is the code for the deluxe hot dog. So when I'm counting the entire ticket, it's going to say that someone ordered a deluxe hot dog when in fact they actually didn't. And so that really affected a lot of my data during the live solve. Something that just did not come to mind beyond level, I think it was 3 or 4, where I was dealing with a lot more data. Lesson learned. And what really irks me, I think, more about it was when I was watching the video, the introduction video to the case, which I will have linked in the description, I told myself, I'm going to have to split these up into groups of 2 letters. I knew that. I had this in my head. That was my strategy. But as I went on, I slipped away from that strategy. But no worries. That's why we do these. These are learning opportunities. These are great opportunities. I love doing these. These are really fun. I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, be sure to give me a like. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. Take a look. I have more other cases here, and I try to post 1 video every week. So keep that in mind. I look forward to seeing you next week. Will Vegas be her new peak? It's the Excel world.